Welcome to West Virginia Commonplace, everyone. I have a special guest today. Her name is Julie Glynn. Julie Glynn has a book that I will not say the title of until she introduces it. Julie, it's your time. You're on the floor. Tell the audience the name of your book and about you.
I've gotten so much positive feedback on the title of my book. It's called If My Ass Were Smaller, Life Would Be Perfect, and Other Lies the Mean Girl in Your Head Tells You.
Okay, so Julie, please tell my audience a little bit about where you're from, but not too much detail because we don't want any stalkers. But tell them about your background and what made you want to write this book.
Well, first of all, I'll tell you that every chapter title is a lie that the mean girl in your head tells you. For example, you'll never measure up. You should never have eaten that. Things like that. So, and we've all got that mean girl in our head. Um, I forgot the question you asked.
Um, I wanted you to tell them a little about your book. Audience, let me tell you this real quick. This is Julie's first podcast. So running around doing this podcast, like she was very eager, and this is her first time on air doing this. So we're going to give her our open arms, and we're going to give her some wings with this.
Special
Um,
treatment.
yeah, we'll give you some good treatment on this one. So I was asking you tell a little bit about yourself, and then we'll switch it around. Let's go into the actual detail of the book. This Mean
Okay.
Girl.
Mm-hmm.
When did your Mean Girl start, and when did you decide to take ownership of the Mean Girl?
Well, that's a really good question. See, I think that our mean girl starts from a very young age. I think that the bigger question would be, when did you recognize that there was a mean girl and that you could make a transformation in the message that she's giving you? I think that's the bigger question. And for me, I know as long as I can remember, there's always been a voice in my head that said, you can't do that. That would be stupid. You'll embarrass yourself. Just stay home. Don't take that risk. Or, you look like a fool, or you need to lose weight. That voice has always been there for us, like, I think as long as probably most of us can remember. And for some of us, it goes on a lifetime. But for some of us, it's like, whoa, wait a minute, we're not going to do this anymore. You know how they say, don't let your worst enemy live between your ears?
Yes.
That's your mean girl.
Okay. Okay. So, when did you decide to like accept that you had to combat with this Mean Girl? Like, when did you like? What period of time in life? Like, what age? What date? We don't have to get that specific, but what happened to make you want to get in the ring and box with the Mean Girl?
The mean girl. I think when the transformation for me happened was several years ago when I started becoming a coach and I started helping other people. And it's like, even though you're helping other people, you kind of think about, how does this apply to myself? And that's when I started to realize, well, wait a minute, I'm encouraging other people to step out and to take a risk and to challenge their negative thinking. So then it was like, well, maybe I need to take some of that and think about it in myself as well. And then, they always say a good coach works with a coach. So through that last couple of years of working on myself at the same time that I'm providing services for someone else, started to uncover my own thinking and what was going on.
Okay, and in doing that, you decided to write a book over other platforms, correct?
I did. I decided to write my book for two reasons. Well, one of them is I felt like I had to write a book. It's not like I decided kind of like, oh, I want to. I had something in me I needed to say. And what kind of solidified it was, before I was a coach, I used to be a teacher.
Okay.
And part of a real small portion of when I was a teacher, I supervised students learning to be a teacher.
Okay.
And so I would go to the school, and a young new teacher. They were juniors in college, so they were doing their very first solo lessons, and I would go and observe for 45 minutes, and then they got a grade, and I had to critique them. And I remember one student I had, and I felt badly for them because they were so nervous and like nobody's going to fail, but they're scared. And I remember this one girl, she gave a lesson in math, and then she set her students off to work independently. And then pretty soon a hand came up, and then another hand came up, and another hand. And she's just like running around the room, hitting every one of these kids' questions. And I could hear, because, I'm in the classroom with her, they were all asking the same question, and she's just running as fast as she can to deliver the new instruction or additional instruction individually to each one of them. And when we were all done and we had our opportunity to come together or to discuss what was going on, I told her, when that happens, you get the first question, okay, when the second kid and the third kid raise their hand, bring the class back together and deliver your message again as a group. Don't try to run around and do it one-on-one. And so I noticed when I was coaching, I'd be on a call with a client and it would come up and I do a one-on-one. Same thing would come up. I do a one-on-one. Same thing would come up. I do a one-on-one. And I was like, okay, I got to pull this together and send it out to the masses. This one-on-one on one-on-one, obviously is a message here that people need to hear, or it wouldn't be coming up over and over again. And so that's when it was like, I was just like, I have something that needs to be said. And so that's kind of like where the book took hold, is bring that classroom back together and deliver the message to the masses.
Okay, I get that. Now, this is one thing I ask authors, and sometimes we edit this out and sometimes we keep it in. Hopefully, we get to keep this part in. Day one, when you're writing a book, where do you start? Like, do you have paper in front of you, or are you typing on a computer? Do you got a brother typewriter? Or where are you starting
Right.
at?
Well, fortunately, my content editor is one of my dearest friends. And we became friends, and I knew she's a book author, or not a book author, a book coach, an author's coach, and a content editor. And we would talk on the phone, and we'd met at a conference a couple years ago, but we would talk on the phone, and we were colleagues. We'd bounce ideas off. And then one time I just casually had mentioned to her, I'm going to write a book someday. I know it's in my destiny. I'm going to write a book. And she's like, what? Why haven't you said anything? This is what I do. We've been talking. So I got started, but it's funny because over the course of the last couple of years, I've frequently said to her, I must be the worst author you've ever worked with, because I didn't work linear. I started in the middle. Sometimes my chapters started in the middle. It's like I had something I have to say, and I would just take my computer out and I would say it. And then I would be like, well, there needs to be a lead into this. I'm obviously in the very middle of the chapter, and I need to lead in. Fortunately, with my book, I could write my chapters in all sorts of different order. I did. I felt like, oh, here's what I need to say, and I would write it down. And then at the very end, we kind of wrote it all out and then placed the chapters in the order that we thought they should go. But one of the chapters that's towards probably the end, I'd say it's like maybe chapter 11 or 12, and I only have like 14. It was one of the first chapters I wrote.
Oh, wow.
But it ended up being at the end of the book, because by the time we laid things out sequentially, that's where it fit. So I am the worst person to ask about process, because
Okay, so after you got your book put together, like the proofreading and the criticism, because I always ask people about this, because you have to understand, when you're telling your story right now on this podcast, you're telling a story to help the next person with your message, but the next upcoming author. And that's one thing that I like to detail a lot, because your process, just because you think it was scrambled, it might be the next process that someone else needs to do to write a book.
It might be what's holding somebody back, is
Right.
because they're not doing it. Like, I didn't have an outline. I see people say, oh, well, you create your outline and you do this. I'm like, what outline? I just would, honest to God, I would take a shower And I'd be like, oh my God, I got to get the computer because I got an idea. And I would hurry up and go run and write down everything I thought about while I was just in the shower.
Okay, so
Or I would take a long walk and come home. And my husband would be like, he'd see me come in from like going for a walk or a run. And I'd like hold my arms up, don't even talk to me, and run straight to the computer. I'm like, I got an idea.
All right, so your book gets proofread. You find grammatic errors, clerical things, you get all that stuff straightened out. How did you handle the criticism from people? Like, because you send your book out and you let people read things, you get things told around and doing different things with it. How did you handle criticism for the chapters and things you wrote when you sent it off to someone to get them to critique it?
Actually, I'm glad you circled back to that. I'm in a whole bunch of Facebook groups that pertain to my topic, which is body acceptance, transform, transforming the mean girl, controlling your thoughts. There were a couple of chapters I had that were highly, I would say, more instructional than other chapters.
Okay.
And I wanted clarity on my message. And so I went into some of my Facebook groups. Well, I'll tell you specifically, it was my chapter on intuitive eating. And there's a lot of detail and there can be a lot of questions about it. So I went into my groups that are based on intuitive eating, and I asked if anybody would be willing to read that chapter in isolation and give me feedback on the flow and clarity. And I got a ton of people that responded. I mean, I'm going to say like 40 or 50 people responded. And I was so scared. And I told my husband, I was like, you're going to have to brace me because I'm sure I'm going to get some feedback that's going to hurt my feelings. And so I was prepared. I'm like, okay, get my tough skin, my thick skin. And honestly, that didn't happen. I haven't had a single person come back to me yet and say, this doesn't make sense, or you should, like Kevin O'Leary says on the Shark Tank, you should take this behind the barn and kill it. No, I mean, I got feedback that was like, you should explain this area right here just a little bit more because it's good, but it was just a little confusing right here. But other than that, I haven't got anybody that said anything like nobody's hurt my feelings. Okay. I got a lot of, wow, that was so helpful, or, oh my gosh, you told the story in such a way it really made sense to me. There's a little bit in the beginning of my book where it kind of addresses a little bit more about when you asked about Mean Girl and her discovery. And there are a couple of specific, very personal experiences that happened to me that I share in the beginning. And I've gotten feedback on those as well, where people have been like, you just really open up and shared yourself in such a deep way that I haven't, I'm sure it will come, but I haven't yet gotten the challenges that, some things I say is like, I think this is how this works. Do X, Y, and Z, and this will work. And I'm sure at some point somebody's going to be like, well, I tried that and it didn't work. Your method is flawed. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure it will. So in the meantime, I'm still working on that, developing the thick skin so that when it does come.
And the one thing I did like that she said that someone gave you constructive criticism with merit. Like, explain this a little bit more. And you took that without, it hurting you, because so many authors I talk to, not everyone's so strong. And, the best feedback that you're getting is from people that don't know you. And to get such positive reviews, that's amazing. So we're going to flip this topic real quick. We're going to dig a little bit deeper into this book.
Okay.
And I always do these scenarios with everyone. I'm a young man. I'm a young female. And I'm having these issues of this person inside of my head, because we all have people inside our heads, telling me that I'll use me as an example. When I was growing up, I wore husky pants. So I was taught, my mom always taught me that being husky was amazing. But when I got to school and I had on those Arizona jeans and they were green and they were husky, there was a kid beside me that was small. And because I have a really high self esteem, nothing like that ever bothered me because I just couldn't dwell on it. But I had a cousin, I had a sister that they were husky too, and they couldn't handle that. What would you tell a young person, a teenager, what can they do at age 13 and 14 when we become body conscious? We're looking at People magazine, we're looking at everywhere um, for what we're supposed to look like, not who we're supposed to be. What would you tell that young person, or would you tell your young self back then that you know now?
That's tough because this goes back into my teaching background, because a lot of the things that I talk about is they're higher order thinking skills, which sometimes aren't fully developed yet in the age range that you're talking about. So the first thing you have to understand is that to be okay with yourself and to be totally self-accepting is something that comes, I think, more strongly with maturity. You can start, by all means, plant that seed. And I did, because like I said, I worked in special ed, and my favorite age group generally was the adolescent age range. But you can start to plant the seed of, and what I present in my book is your own thoughts are what affect your feelings and your actions and the results that you get. And so your example, somebody thinks that your cousin has a bad thought about your cousin because she's wearing husky jeans. That's that other person's thoughts, feelings, actions, results. That has nothing to do with your cousin. She's in charge of her own. I call it think, feel, do, get. So your cousin is completely in charge of what she thinks, what she feels, what she does, and what she gets.
Okay, and then the other thing that I noticed, like, because I looked on your website, a good thing, to start their mental pattern, like to get your mindset, will be stop believing the lies, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. And you get to decide whether they're lies or not. That's the thing. Well, and I mentioned this in my book too, is we take our own mean girl and we go put her in someone else's head and then use it against us. Like, we'll be walking along or in the grocery store, whatever, and somebody will just kind of give us a passing look, and immediately we're like, oh dang, you see that? That person probably thinks I'm fat. They're probably right. I should go on a diet. I knew I looked like crap today, and I could just tell by the way that person looked at me. So now we just took our mean girl, put her in someone else's head, and used it against us. And so that's another one of those lies. It's like, where's this coming from? And just because someone else, even if they said something, even if they walk by and they say, "Hey, you look like crap today," that's their thought. That's their issue. That's not yours. You don't have to take that on. It's an option to be like, it's not my issue. Hey, I look fabulous today. And you can believe that if you want. And that's the thing too, is like, if you get to choose what you think, well, then why wouldn't you choose really good things?
Yeah, positivity, right?
Yeah, why would you choose to oh, I'm gonna, like, I mean, we all do it though. I mean, we wake up, we look in the mirror, and it's like, oh my gosh, I think I have a wrinkle I didn't have yesterday. Oh, I'm getting old. Look at things are going to hell. It's like, you don't have to take that on as a thought. You can choose anything you want. And even if you do have a wrinkle, even if it's an absolute positive fact, yes, I have a new wrinkle that I didn't have yesterday. That doesn't have to be bad. It can be like a yay, at least I'm still alive from yesterday.
Right,
I'm
right.
growing and
Hmm.
aging, and that's a good thing. And so that's the other thing. You get to decide, do I want this to be a good thing or a bad thing? So if you get to pick, then pick good things.
Okay, so now here comes this moment that I always have in the show, and I've gotten more deeper into it with season three, which audience, we are in season three. Um, I have this 2020 moment. Okay,
Hmm.
this is that Diane Sawyer, that Barbara Walters, that hard hitting question. And this is the most personable question that I'm going to ask you right now. And you're not ready for this, but I'm going to ask you to do this real fast. We're talking about body positivity. We're talking about self esteem. We're talking about all these agents that you're using to build someone up. And we're not going to take anything away from your book by this question I'm about to ask, but it's really personal right now. What happened on that day in your life to make you, because I know we ask a roundabout question all through the episode, but what happened one day to make you, like, what happened that day that you decided that hey, I'm not going to let this voice take me down? Like, what day was it? What incident? What happened to truly transform you? Because everybody has an incident. I'll give you a great example about me real fast. I had done this podcast for a while, and I stopped for almost a year, and I came back to it after a lot of tragic events that I spoke with you about privately. I had to come back and not be a voice for the world, but let other people's voices be heard because of all the travel I do. So I just realized that my personal tragedy, I needed to come up out of that. So to heal from that, I meet different people that don't know what they're doing at the time, but they do know that they're helping me. So at the moment when I had my tragedy, it just turned me around. That day that happened, a month later, I realized, hey, I need to get back into this. I need to spread positivity. I need to get conscious of our mental health. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just conscious of a few pop culture things to help other people out, but mental health is the key, the thing that I need to work on. So, what day and what time and what happened in your life to make you decide that you were going to be this transformational life coach? You were going to be anti-diet. What happened? What day did that happen?
Well, I'll tell you this, okay? I know exactly when it happened, exact
But
minute,
don't take. But
exactly.
don't. But listen. Don't take away from your book. Don't take away
And
from
that's what
your
I'm going
book.
to tell you right now. I'm not going to tell you because you know what? It's in my book. It
Okay.
totally tells you straight up in my book where I was, what was happening when the first time I realized, hold on, we've made progress. There's no mean girl here right now. There's a supportive voice in my head that says, you're going to make it through
Okay. So let's
this.
put a spin on this real quick because I always like to spin things. This book, if my
Mm-hmm.
ass were smaller, life would be perfect. Where can the audience find this book?
Right now, they can only find it on my website.
And plug your website, please.
It's www.julieglynn.com, and it's Glynn.
Okay.
That's how you
And
spell
what?
my last
Okay. And what else on this website can people find there?
name. Right now, great question. Right now, really not much else. We're revamping. Well, this is just a little side note I'll tell you on like the business aspect of building. And that
Okay.
is, I've been told, don't worry about your website. Don't worry about having a perfect presence. Just get out there and serve the people and in time deal with technology. And so that's kind of where we're at right now is like my website hasn't been updated in I think over a year, maybe two. It had a different domain name, which we're not even using anymore. And so my web designer is busy, busy, busy right now redoing my entire website with the exception of the one page that's hosting the pre-order phase that we're in right now.
Okay. Now let me ask you this: is your book going to be available on Amazon?
It will, yeah. What we decided to do, well, I don't know. You can probably tell by now. I'm a little bit of a chatterbox, and
Okay.
talking and presenting isn't always difficult for me. And I had anticipated that we were going to have a live launch. I wanted to do, open it up to the public and have everybody come out and read part of my book and do a Q&A and all that fun stuff. And interestingly enough, 2020 seems to not be allowing those types of activities to occur.
Yes, COVID-19 has shut us all down. It's brought us to the Zoom meeting. You
Yes,
know.
yes. So I decided that instead I would do a pre-order launch period.
Okay.
So right now my book is not available because we're still doing the little final things, review for the, you know how you put reviews in the back of the book and all that stuff. We're getting those right now and finishing up the final little details, and then it'll go to the printer. So I decided to do a pre-order period that it's a little bit better package than what you get on Amazon, because you get my book and you get a signature
Okay.
from me, and you get the Kindle edition. And then I have a special surprise that we've been working on that I'm going to include in my book, and that will be also in there in the pre-order package. And so right now it's in pre-order. That will stop when we go to print.
Okay.
Then it'll stop. After the books come back and they get sent out to everybody on pre-order, I don't know how long it takes for them to format and get things set up in Amazon, but I'm guessing there'll be a period of time that pre-order people will have already received, but it won't be available yet to the public on Amazon.
Okay. And one thing, like, since you touched on this, I always talk like the little extra time that we do after the show, before the show. We're going to the author aspect of things, like publishing your book. How hard was it to get your book published? Because I always ask every author, and a lot of authors ask me to cut this out because they're like, hey, we don't want to discourage somebody. But it's a lot more than just writing the book, getting it proofread, and then
It is. There's a lot of misconception. I think a lot of kudos I get from people. They have this misconception that, like, I got picked up by Random House or something. We self-published, but that being said, now when I look at what, because there's a lot of self-published authors that are like, oh, the dream is that after your book comes out, someone like Random House will pick it up, and then you'll be, a Nicholas Sparks or a Stephen King, or, and right now I feel like I never want that to happen, because you lose, they own your book. You can't make any changes. You don't get to do anything. So I encourage people to consider strongly self-publishing. What happened with me, and I think I was lucky, like I said, I had a friend who was a book author, and she hooked me up. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, and it's just a matter of finding the right ones. But I actually have I have a small team. I have my content editor. I have a copy editor who did, all my misplaced commas and semicolons.
grammatical stuff.
Oh yeah, that was like a nightmare when that came back. And then I have a person who does my cover design and my formatting and getting everything set up for Amazon and publication. A lot of people do it on their own. I kind of felt like, I'm the only one who can write my book. And so I don't want to spend my time formatting or even learning how to format, because no one else can write my book. Nobody can edit my content. Nobody can go deeper for better understanding than me. And so we decided, let's hire somebody to do the formatting and the uploading it to Amazon.
Okay. So roundabout, self-publishing worked out better for you. And thank you for sharing that, because like so many people think that you've got to get a book, get it, like a side note about me, which is really weird. I published the book through KDP, which is Kindle Digital Publishing.
That's what we use.
And when I did that, they help you out here and there once you get it over to their end of things. And I noticed, you reading these contracts and you read different things. Like if I ever wanted to make a physical book, and I was like, unless you self-publish the physical book, you're going to lose ownership somewhere. You're going to be paying someone else to do something where you have a team, you have the skills to market it, obviously, because your real life job, it's a part of marketing too there.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. All right, now it comes a point in our episode that I have to ask you something that my audience, I ask everyone. It can be a talent. It could just be something about you. What is something that no one knows about you, or a hidden talent that you have? because the one that I always use is I have a guy. He's a rapper in New York City, fairly popular. This guy can take an Rubik's Cube and in 30 to 40 seconds, he can solve it. I'm like, that's the greatest mental function. I don't know what he uses that brain power for beyond writing rhymes or whatever. He could probably be a nuclear scientist, but I'm like, I can't do that. That's amazing. So it's your turn.
You know what? I've listened to your podcast before, so I knew this question was coming. So I wasn't caught off guard. It's kind of a secret, but there are, and I would consider myself lucky that there are still people in my life that know this. I was a horrible student, K to 12, the worst.
Whoa.
The worst. I don't still have it, but I had recently gotten my high school transcript. And I should back up a little bit because this is what makes it even more shocking. I have 2 master's degrees.
What?
Yeah, I have 2. It's unnecessary. I did not need 2. But like one of them, I think my grades were really, really good in both of my degrees. My first one was traditional, where I actually went to college, and I was a mother, and it was kind of crazy. It's like the guy who walked uphill both ways to school, you know.
Okay. Yes.
This was before they had online. We drove 100 miles one way twice a week after my kids got out of school, so I could attend classes.
Whoa.
Back in, it was like the early 2000s, I think. My kids were in junior high, and I worked at their school, and we got out at 3, and we got in the car, and we'd pick up a Pizza Hut, and we'd eat pizza in the car, and we drove 100 miles. And they sat in the library and did their homework, and then I attended my class, and then we went home. I got like a 3.7 grade point doing that. And I was a single mom and working full time. So, so for me to say I was a horrible, horrible student, K to 12, is kind of like a completely opposite of what I am now. But anyway, I started to say I got my high school transcript one time, and I got it so that I could show the students that I worked with. Because like I said, I worked special ed and I worked in high school, and it was proof. I put my high school transcript next to my college transcripts to say, this does not define who you are right now, because this is where I was when I was your age. And I swear I don't remember exactly. I think there was a 1 in my transcript, like at one point. I don't think it was below 1, but I think I was definitely below 2. But I don't think it was below 1.
I'm not laughing at you, but a 1, basically, you just showed up to class.
I think I got a C once when I was in high school. I think I got a C in one of my classes. Otherwise, straight D's, D plus, D minus, D. It is every form of a D. Oh, but there was an occasional what I called a flying flag.
That's crazy. So you were a subpar. You weren't even a mediocre student. You were a subpar student, and you went to college. You're a teacher. You have 2 master's degrees. So that's.
And I wrote a book.
Let me say this, so this goes into the history on this podcast. That is probably the best secret that I've heard, because like you make me feel good, because like I've always been a subpar. I've always loved mediocrity. But you were below the belt.
I had to look up to see mediocrity. It was, and let me add on too, if I would have missed one more day of school, they would have made me repeat the year, because I would have exceeded the number of absentees that were allowed.
Oh wow! So that's that right there, like that's a testament that you can slack through school and still become something. I love that. Like that right there, like I need you to go into public speaking now and do this. Like, hey, go to class.
Like I said, I worked with my students in high school, and a lot of them were just like, I get it. This thing, I get it. I didn't want to be there either. This is a horrible experience for a person to go through, high school. And my students would just be like, they're like kicking stones and they're dragging their chin. And it's like, my world is horrible. This is the worst place ever. And I'd be like, no, look what happened to me. It wasn't any different. And now look how I am. So but like I said, I consider one of my greatest blessings is there are people in my world today who know that, which means I still have friends from high school who know that I really flunked out.
I mean, man, and I mean, like that's really amazing. Cause like in school, like just tell them from what you're telling, like where I'm from in Virginia, people got to strive to be in this club, that club. You got to have good grades. And then I see so many people go get an anthropology degree and never do anything in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that like right there, that was amazing. And
one of the really good things about it, which I think helped shaped me a lot, my parents did not give me a hard time about it.
They didn't.
Oh, Julie got another D. Well, Julie got another, and it's like it must have been so frustrating for them because I didn't realize it at the time, but obviously I had a lot of potential. I had it in me to do fine and to do well because I did, but they just let me find my own way. They didn't, I didn't get $1 for an A or get grounded for an F. And I got an F one time on purpose because I didn't like the teacher. And I was like, I refuse to let him impact me. I refuse to learn from him because I don't like him. My mother supported me. She supported my reason for not liking him. And she supported me for refusing to learn from him.
and see, that's a great parent. And that way right there, you didn't make a Saturday ABC special
I know.
by letting the teacher impact your life.
They were probably scared to death. I mean, I would be like, I would just be like, but yeah, that's my secret. It's not a secret anymore, I guess.
Yeah, like that's really amazing. Like I said, that's up there in the top. I want to probably say that's the best one as of right now. I hope no one trumps you or anything like that on that part. And Julie, I want to thank you so much for coming on West Virginia Commonplace today.
This has been really fun. To think I was nervous when we started.
And the one thing is, at the end of the show, I always do this. We have a shout out, because you have a team behind you, you have children behind you. Take a moment right now and let everybody know a big thank you. You can name people if it's too many. Just let them know that you appreciate them.
Well, I do. I appreciate everybody, and I've given this some thought because I have not dedicated my book and I have not wrote my acknowledgments section yet. And I thought, gee, I'm probably better off to not name than to name and not name the right people. So my shout out is every single person who's come through my life has impacted me in a way that's made me who I am today. Whether it was good or bad, they touched my world in a way. And so my shout out is pretty much every single person who I've ever come in contact with, including the 90-year-old man that flipped me off one day in the car. It's like, it helped form who I am now. But yeah, I have a great team. I probably will in my book give them a named shout out because they've been kind enough to deal with me through all of this.
So to do a quick roundup on everything, because I have listeners that like skip through certain parts. So and usually I break them up 5-6 things. I throw me into commercials or whatever I need to so I can make my money. So I need you to plug your website, plug your social media, if you don't mind. And then we talked about an Instagram business starting soon.
I have like 2 followers, 2 posts. Okay, my website is www.julieglynn. It's JulieGlynn.com. My Facebook is Julie Glynn, same spelling, coaching, and Instagram is, I believe, Julie Glynn Coaching as well. Like I said, I just started that. I'm not really very good at it. And then the other thing I was going to throw in there too is that in January or February, the reason why we're going through this huge revamp on my website is my book is kind of like an intro springboard. I'll have an online course where we really dive deep into some activities, discussions, working together on, like I had said, controlling your thoughts and your feelings and keeping other people's thoughts out of your loop, out of your cycle, addressing your mean girl, addressing your, thoughts about your body, how you feed your body. So that will be coming out right after the first of the year on my website as well, where you read the book and then it's like, this is a really good overview, but like, let's really go to work. And that will be coming out.
Okay, so one thing that I'll extend back out to you when we get closer, so it may be December if you want, probably even going into season 4, because like I told you how everything stacks out. We would definitely like to have you back, and I say we, I mean all of the people that listen to the show. I would love to have you back. They would love to definitely have you back after this goes out in the air. You have a positive message. I would like to have you back on to talk about that again, if you don't mind.
That would be awesome.
All right. So once again, I want to thank you for being on the show, and I hope that your book reaches astronomical numbers. I hope that you touch over 1 million people, or at least as long as you touch 10, you touch 10 people, that'll touch 100 people, and then it'll multiply regardless of how long it takes.
Right.
Because we know this is a process with anything we do.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I hope that you get all the social media intact and everything that you want to promote and do everything else. So I guess this is going to be the end of our episode now. So any last words you want to say?
I don't think so. I feel like, I know you told me like don't feel like I talk too much, but I feel like I talk too much.
Not at all. Not at all. So once again, West Virginia Commonplace, thank you very much for listening. And it was a pleasure having Julie Glynn on.